All right. It says we're live. Doesn't mean we're actually live. We gotta wait for it to hit the interwebs. But for those of you who may be seeing this, good morning. Please comment, say hey. I'm checking it out real quick. Checking out my LinkedIn. Last thing I want to do, Rishab, is like do this thing and have to restart all over again. All right, cool. We are live on LinkedIn. All right, sweet. What's going on, everybody? Good morning. Yep, just got a notification. We're good on YouTube. Good morning, TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter. Are we anywhere else right now? Not Snapchat. But anyways, it's good to see y'all. Good morning. Excited for this episode of Guidance Counselor 2.0. Hanging out with Rishab this morning. Going to talk about a lot of stuff. We're starting a little bit early. Probably like, Taylor, you're like 8 minutes early. I know I am, because we got a lot to cover. We got a lot to cover today. And I'm super pumped about it. And so for those of you tuning in, welcome. This is Guidance Counselor 2.0. You're probably like, Taylor, what is this thing? If you do not know what this is a podcast, morning show, networking platform. So what I realized is that really in the last 6 to 9 months, that really this is kind of like a virtual meetup. You just come together once every morning for 30 minutes in your pajamas. You get to hang out with other folks in tech. You get to ask my speakers, really cool speakers for the record, some good questions. They don't bill you for it. You can learn something and then carry on with your morning. And so what I tell people is to engage, to comment, to say, hey, because we're not all in our Apple Vision Pro goggles yet. We're not there yet. We're not streaming the show in the metaverse. So I don't know if you're watching unless you comment. Now, I know there's a lot of lurkers because y'all my DM saying, Taylor, that was a great show. And I go, wow, why don't you comment? And so please comment, say, hey, let us know where you tune in from. We've had folks from all over the world in this show, which is really, really cool. Second off, ask questions. Like I said, Rishab, it comes with a wealth of knowledge. We're going to talk about a lot of cool stuff, AI being kind of really the main techie thing we're going to talk about today. We're also going to talk about his story about getting into tech because it's a good one. And then a few other housekeeping things. Listen, I've gotten away from this, and I want to bring it back. I want to celebrate you today. So I feel like in today's world, we're always on to the next thing, right? Hey, I get my title change. When's my next title change? Or, hey, I got the raise, and then when's my next raise, right? And I feel like we as human beings, we don't slow down and just celebrate ourselves. The Discord I run, the Gun.io Discord I run right now, we have like 700 people in it. I just created a weekly wins or daily wins thing, right? Because I want to celebrate you. So please say, hey, and let us know what you want to celebrate. If you deploy code to a production on a Friday and didn't burn the house down, we'd love to hear that. So please do that. And if you feel weird about celebrating yourself, celebrate somebody else. Celebrate somebody else. Throw it up. And then finally, I want to give a shout out to my partners this morning. First and foremost, That Conference for the official coffee sponsor of the show. Appreciate you, Clark. Great set of beans, I promise. Really, really good. Use the code GC2 for a few bucks off your bag of beans on his website. And also, finally, I want to give a shout out to Render ATL, the Platinum Premier Gold Diamond member of the pod, whatever you want to call it. They picked up the pod for the second year in a row. So Render, Justin, and the crew, thank you so much. I am also the Nashville ambassador. We hosted our first Render ATL Nashville meetup. Last week, it was great. We had about 18 people show up. It's coffee and co-working. We just hung out and drank some coffee and just hung out and had some breakfast. It was a great time. So thank you, Render, as well. Again, it's good to see y'all. Tejas, it's good to see you. Nazmul, it's good to see you as well. All right, so we're going to dive in. Rishab, let's give the people what they want, man. Who are you? What do you do? And we'll go from there.
Sounds good. Yeah. So my name is Rishab. You can find me online at Rishab in Cloud, as on my hat, as you see it on the banner.
So good.
And yeah, I have been working in tech for almost 6 years now. And for any of you who is interested to know a little bit of backstory, I started as in tech support. So I don't have a computer science degree, but I was able to have enough funds to get a computer networking and technical support diploma, which was 2 years. And the least, barrier to entry kind of role was tech support. So I went in, did that. That's how I started in tech. Realized I don't want to do that for my entire life. So
Sure.
I kind of found or started exploring with software engineering, QA, testing, and cloud engineering. Those were the three teams. The company that I was working for, I was able to shadow. So I reached out and I'm like, hey, I'm looking to transition. Can I shadow? these teams, and everybody was super supportive. So I shadowed each team for like a few weeks. Finally, I made the decision to pick cloud, and I was super fascinated about, hey, you can rent, servers instead
Yeah.
of buying
Yeah.
them. I'm like, this is awesome. And this is back in 2018, when cloud became kind of mainstream. Every company
Sure.
was moving to cloud.
Sure.
So I think it was a good decision. They promoted me to a cloud engineer, spent 2 years in that role, and then I was working with a lot of DevOps related stuff, whether it's CI/CD, monitoring, or infrastructure as code. And there was also an acquisition that happened. So they thought, my skills will be better suited for a DevOps engineer role. So they moved me to a different team, spent a year in that role, and finally moved to Google to work on the technical solutions team under GCP, which was kind of exciting because big tech is kind of a dream for
Sure.
majority of the
Yeah.
people, especially ones that don't have a degree and they finally make it to big tech. I think it was a huge milestone. But we can talk about it
Yeah.
more in depth. But I didn't like the role as much, so I joined Twilio later as a developer evangelist. So that has been going amazing. It's been 2 years now, almost 2 years. I'm 2 months short. So
That's awesome.
yeah, that's a
That's
bit
awesome.
about me and my kind of tech side
Yeah.
of or career side. But yeah, I met Taylor in person at that conference a few weeks ago, which was awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, man, so many places to dive into. I want to start with kind of your breaking into tech. So, what were you doing before you got into tech? I want to set the stage.
Sure, yeah. And I met Danny. Shout out to Danny. He was a huge inspiration into what all happened
Yeah,
and
dude, he's
how
awesome.
trajectory. But the reason I'm shouting out Danny is because I used to work at a gas station, and I worked for 2.5 years at a gas station
Yeah.
as a clerk. I usually worked the night shifts because,
Phew.
you know, I was a student. I had to go
Yeah.
to college to get my technical support diploma.
Right.
And during summers, I also used to deliver pizzas, which I liked better than the gas station. I don't know
For
why.
sure. So, I mean, let me ask you this, man. Dude, how did you get your first role, man? Like, how did you go from gas station to your first role as a junior dev?
Sure. It was interesting. So we had the college, since this was, a public college, it was involved within the community. And this is like, I'm talking about Kingston. So if anyone knows, Kingston is like, it used to be a small town in Ontario on the east coast of Canada. And yeah, there were like 5 tech companies back in 2016, 17 within the city, and most of them did like IT consulting. There was like one SaaS company, and we had, in order to pass the diploma, you had to do like a placement at a
O-
company, which was
Okay, like
unpaid,
like
by the
a
way.
like an internship type thing.
Yeah, an internship. So companies partnered with this college,
Okay.
so people could have hands-on skill,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but it was not paid. And we had 86 students in the program that were
Okay.
looking for internships with these, 5 companies in the city. And then you had like 10 other companies that would come out of the city. So you would have to like travel. So you need a car and stuff to figure out the commute. The on campus interviews, I didn't make any of it. I did like 6 interviews with different companies, and it was one of those things. Like it only had been 1.5 year in this new country called
Hmm.
Canada. English was not my first language, so
Right.
communication and resume was not my
Forte.
forte at the
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
But I had good relations with the professors, with my dean, because tech has been something that I'm really, I don't want to make it sound cliche, but I am passionate about tech.
Yeah.
I loved Linux. and networking.
I love it.
And that's how I was like in good terms with the professors and even the dean at some point, because I worked at certain projects that
Yeah.
gave me that visibility. And I was stressed and very anxious because you had this week of where companies would come to the college and you could get placed somewhere, but I didn't. So I shared those stress points with my professors, and finally, there were like three companies that couldn't make it to the placement round, so they posted out an email saying that, hey, there are these three companies that are looking for people,
Yeah.
and there were like 15 people who were still left. So I shoot my shot, and
Yeah.
I get a call.
Just slide into the DMs. Just like, hey, you
It was
shoot an email.
it was it was an email.
Yeah.
I was still old school back then, no
Yeah. Yeah.
DMs. I didn't know the power of LinkedIn, to be honest.
Okay.
So I just sent out an email. I would say it was very short email and direct to the point.
Good.
That
Which is
was
great.
Yeah, that was something my professor said. He's like, cut the fluff out. Nobody has
Yeah.
the time to read it.
Nobody does.
Just tell them how you can come and help them, because this
Yes.
was unpaid, right? So just tell them your experience, how you can be an asset to them, and that was it. Like, I'm like,
Yeah.
these are my skills. This is my forte. I can come help you with Linux and networking as
Yeah.
a junior IT admin. Give me a chance, and we can talk about it more in detail when we have a call.
Yep.
And they ended up calling me. So that call lasted only 20 minutes.
Oh shoot. Okay.
So I thought I did bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then I finally received an email saying that, hey, this is your joining date. You'll be working
That's
Monday to
awesome.
Thursday for these many hours. We don't expect too much because it's unpaid, but
Sure.
and you can still continue your part-time job. So it worked out. But I gave, and I don't want to brag, but I gave like 150%
Yeah.
at this
Yeah.
unpaid placement.
Well, it's interesting. I'm gonna interrupt you real quick. It's
Sure.
interesting we're talking about unpaid. So I made a video. I don't know if you saw it yesterday about taking on free work, and I know it's a very this is a very polarizing topic, right? And I've had different types of responses. It was yes, do free work, to don't do free work in a sense that it's free. Make sure you're still getting something from it. And then there's the third, which was like, absolutely not, nothing's free, yada, yada, yada. So I'm kind of curious, man, what are your thoughts? Because obviously you got your jump in your career by essentially free work. However, it led to something. So that's that middle ground argument where it's like, could you say it was free? I mean, you weren't getting paid for it, but it led to something. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on that whole thing?
Yeah, so I think there are two factors to this situation, and everybody's situation might be different. Is first of all, I wouldn't get my diploma if I didn't do this. So you can't graduate until you do any placement work or
Right.
this free internship work. This was like part of the curriculum to give you that hands-on kind of, because college and education is different to the real world. I realized it during those 2 months. So that I think that was the number one factor is like, oh, in order to complete and graduate from this college, I need to get placed somewhere and do this for 2 months. And there are two ways to look at it, and people did. So the supervisor that I got, he was the IT architect at this company. Within 2 weeks, he realized that I'm onto something and the
Really?
amount of work I have been doing, and he told me to take it slow. And the reason he said this is because he said we have had past placement students, and they would do like one or two tasks in the entire week, and the rest of the time they would just focus on their coursework or like homework or assignments and stuff that they
Yeah.
got from college, because again, it's unpaid.
Right.
So he's like, what you're doing is, highly appreciated, but just to let you know, since you are not gaining any monetary benefit from this, you can take things slow. Focus
Mm-hmm.
on like your education and other stuff. And I'm like, no, like this is fun. This is real life
Yeah.
application of all the
Yeah.
things that I have been taught. So once that was kind of clear what their expectations from me were and how I was, kind of a little bit beyond their expectations,
Right.
um,
Right.
he's they started including me in like IT projects where, I was not a part of. They didn't even plan to include me because, you need enterprise kind of licenses for my account.
Sure.
I needed access. And once I gained that kind of trust. So I totally think there are two ways to look at it. But my goal with this was that I needed a full time job offer after this
Correct.
at this particular place.
Correct.
And
And,
I'll,
and
I'll
and you knew that was potentially an option,
yes,
right? Which
I
I think,
knew if I could turn enough people's head
right,
towards me and what I've been doing at this company, again, I had the leverage that I'm doing this for free, right?
right,
So I had that leverage that everybody thought, hey, like, why is this dude going so hard even it's for free?
right,
So
right.
I used that as leverage.
Yeah,
And after like first month, I collaborated with every damn team. Again, this to remind you, this is a 38 people company, so it was easy to do that.
sure.
I helped marketing with few websites. I helped devs with like a Raspberry Pi project. They needed a dashboard on every engineering meeting room that kind of showed the uptime status. I didn't know what Raspberry Pi was, but I
Right.
damn learned it within a few
Yeah,
weeks and built a
yeah,
dashboard.
right.
So I knew what my goal was. It was to escape the gas station
Yeah,
and get the
yeah.
full time job.
Well, and I think that's like going back to the free work thing. I mean, that's where you got to make a decision, right? And it's like you had a goal in mind. It was a decision like, listen, like I need to get a full-time job. This is the gateway for me to do it. And I guess like that's that middle ground argument where it's like it may be free monetarily, but you are getting something out of it, which is a full-time job. So I want to talk about I do want to talk about like getting into big tech, right? Twilio, I still consider big tech. Google, I know that's a topic for a lot of people. Any general advice with folks that maybe want to try to break into big tech over the next year or two?
Um, Great question. I think the times are definitely different.
Yeah,
When and that's again, I don't mean to demotivate anyone of you
sure.
or bring down your expectations, but I also want to paint a real picture of where we are with the tech mark or like the tech industry at this point. And you might have seen the news and posts from several of us about the layoffs and how just the market is in general. And I think it's gonna stay that it's gonna be like that for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And it is definitely harder to break just into tech compared to what I was able to do back in 2018.
Sure.
Not only big tech, and even with big tech, I did that in 2022, um, early 2022, which was still a better time than the times we are in now.
Sure.
But I think what will help you, first of all, never, ever neglect the fundamentals.
Yeah.
You go interview for Microsoft, AWS, Google, Tesla, I don't any of the big tech companies, most of the times there's going to be a coding round. There's going to be a networking like system design, system architect round, and you can only answer those questions and they're very fundamental. Like, okay, they can go as deep down as how does the DNS work? How does
Yeah.
internet work? And you need to have that sort of knowledge to be able to explain it during the interview in a way that you don't come out as someone who doesn't know how internet works.
Sure.
And my experience, I have interviewed with all three of them. So my focus, as you know, has been cloud. So I've interviewed with AWS, Microsoft for an Azure role, and Google for GCP.
Mm-hmm.
My experience has been that, yeah, they don't care as much about the platform itself.
Yeah.
So like I had very less experience working with GCP, and even then I was hired for the GCP role
Yeah.
because it's the knowledge. Underneath everything is same. You have servers that
Yeah.
talk over networks in a data center that send packets with information, and you need to know how it works.
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
focus on the fundamentals, and also don't neglect soft skills. If you can't communicate in a way that what you know, like how they can trust you that you have the necessary information, if you can't communicate it to them.
Yeah.
Nobody has the power to read your mind. So learn soft skills, be presentable, and figure out a way that, hey, these are the XYZ projects I have done. This is
Yeah.
the knowledge I bring. How do I communicate this in a way that the hiring manager and people who are interviewing you understand it? And that not only goes into conversations, but also like how do you translate it on the resume? How do you
Hmm.
translate in your emails and cover letter?
100%. Well, a few things, a few questions for you and comments. One, how would you recommend folks get better at soft skills? And again, like soft skills are crucial. So I don't know, man. I've had my thoughts, but how do you get better at that stuff?
Okay. Um,
And I don't think there's any wrong answers for the record for this question.
yeah, I think it's a broader challenge for two reasons. Oh, one of it, and I'm gonna address two situations. So the
Right.
first one is if you are accustomed to the culture. So for me, there were a lot of culture shocks and a lot of getting to know things because there are pop culture references.
Yeah.
There are you know just things that you don't know that don't translate to simple English because of the phrases that people will use. So I think
Hmm.
that will take time. I think that was a bit of a challenge for me, but you can only learn that by interacting with people. So go do interviews, go do mock interviews if you have people around you, if you have friends that are available, and they don't even have to be technical. Just try to communicate with them. Like talk about personal other skills that you might have if your friends are not technical, right? And see if they understand the depth of your answers. And like practice is the only thing that will make you perfect.
Yeah.
So one thing that I had to do is I had I have huge tapes of me just speaking to different topics,
Yeah.
and then I rewatched them. I was not this fluent as you're seeing me right now.
Mm.
You can look up my video. I have very old videos that I published
Okay.
just because I want to show people that there is a way to grow.
I love
You
that.
can look
I love that.
at videos that are from 2020
Yeah.
and you can see the amount of times I stutter and the amount of times there's just complete silence for like 10 seconds.
Mm.
But,
Mm.
and you can see my videos that I published this year or last year, there's
Yeah.
definitely growth. But that also shows you need to be consistent and be
Yep.
practicing these skills.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think you made such a good point too, man, with the email. And I want to encourage folks who are watching this now or in the future that, man, being direct right now is kind of its own superpower, I could say. I think being direct in meetings, I think being direct in emails, I think being direct in just general communication, I think is a very underrated skill. And it's not surprising that you found your first job by sending a very direct email, and the advice you got was take out the fluff. So I'm kind of curious if you have any more thoughts on that, especially as you've grown in your career.
Definitely. I think don't focus on yourself.
Hmm.
Like when you send that cold email out, don't be all like, I know you're trying to sell yourself. At the end of the day, that's what it is. You're trying
Sure.
to sell. It's as similar as if you're trying to sell a product. In this case, you're trying to sell yourself, but keep in mind that they're probably looking for a person who can come help them with challenges that they're having, and that's why they have posted a role that
Right.
defines those challenges.
Right.
So do your research
Yes.
and figure out a way on how you can list the items and kind of make this as a map of, okay, I have Linux and networking skills, how I can come that and help with that with this XYZ company. So that's how you generate value, right?
Yep.
So look at ways how you will be bringing value to a certain role and communicate on that instead of saying, okay, hey, I have this much amount of experience, I have these XYZ certifications, and I have these skills. Just don't leave your email to that or your message to that. Go do research and then be like, hey, I do have XYZ years
Yes.
of experience, but this is how it can come and help you or
Mm-hmm.
the organization in a certain way. Be direct, show them how you can bring value to the
Yeah.
team or to the organization. Most of the times, if you nail this, you'll get a reply back, trust me.
So it's interesting you brought that up. I was talking with a senior engineering manager who was recently on the job, who was on the job search now, was recently laid off last week, and he said he was panicking the first 3 weeks of his interviewing process because he wasn't getting anything back. But then he started to be very direct in his LinkedIn messages to engineering leaders of the positions that were being hired on LinkedIn, and being very direct and being like, hey, I know you're getting a lot of DMs or a lot of applicants. Here's why I'm a fit. Let me know if you want to talk. And he said he's probably batting over 50% from a response rate perspective. So again, I just want to reiterate this for everybody who's watching this. Like, be direct, not the whole, hey, how are you doing? Or I have a question, and waiting for the person to respond back to you, right? Be direct. It's okay. Be aggressive. You're gonna have to be borderline aggressive. So so with the last like 10 minutes, I do want to talk about AI. Talk to me about what your just kind of your role, maybe set the stage a little bit on the AI side of things and how involved you are there.
Yeah, I think I started like we saw this huge kind of jump within the machine learning and AI world last year
Mm-hmm.
with the progress we made with large language models and how they are impacting our day to day kind of lifestyle. Given that I work in tech, so there
Mm-hmm.
are a lot of things that I can leverage from large language models at this point, and I've been fascinated from like day zero when ChatGPT was announced.
Right.
Majority, I was a bit skeptical at the beginning because last year I did take up a contract of teaching cloud computing at the same college that I graduated from.
That's cool.
So I was teaching a course there for one semester, and like students started using ChatGPT, and you could tell.
Oh yeah. Oh
And there
yeah.
were no like that was like a personal kind of filter, but there were no tools at the point to determine if the assignment or the papers were plagiarized by using
Yep.
AI. And I saw that as a challenge more back then than as a tool that could help. So that was my starting kind of phase with AI. And I had like a huge rant on TikTok, which for wrong reasons went viral. And after that, I started exploring the applications of this, and the like OpenAI made some leaps with ChatGPT. We had 3.5 and then 4. We had LangChain as a framework that came out, and I was super interested into that. And we had an internal project at Twilio that I got to work on because I was exploring LangChain. So it
Mm-hmm.
was more like, okay, I was exploring certain topic, and there was an opportunity within the company to work on a certain project,
Yeah.
which aligned perfectly when it comes to the timing. So I spent the last 6 months, diving really deep into the LLM world and how you can build LLM powered applications to solve your own problems and challenges, and for certain use cases,
Mm-hmm.
which ended up some of you are familiar, which ended up me creating a LangChain course for a free code
Oh,
camp,
nice. Okay.
which by the way is already outdated because of the things and the pace we are moving in this space. So yeah, I think that has been my like experience or how I started with AI at the first place. Yeah.
That's awesome. And so I think the big question is AI going to take our jobs? What are your thoughts on that whole argument?
I again, this is my personal opinion,
Right. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
opinions can change over time. But at the point that we are in, specifically for this year, I think AI is there's no denying that it's rising when it comes to the usage. So
Mm-hmm.
the if you look at the stats from GitHub, because of their GitHub Copilot, and if you look at the stats from OpenAI, the usage of AI with day-to-day tasks have been rising. Given the fact I'm not just strictly talking about software development, but also like
Right.
other use cases. Well, I use it a lot of times to help me with drafting up an email or even with my content to not generate content, but help me refine it in a certain
Mm-hmm.
way that it has a hook. How can I get more engagement and things like that?
Right.
And it's amazing. So there's no denying that. I think in terms to tech, specifically like development and software engineering, it can definitely speed up the coding process.
Sure.
It can definitely help you identify patterns and lead you to identify errors because now it has the capability to go through large chunks of information at a speed that human brain cannot. So like for example, like I was onboarded to a project, you can ask Copilot to be like, and this is I'm talking about GitHub Copilot. You can ask and you can select functions within your code file and ask, hey, what does this function do? And it'll explain it to you in like 2 minutes instead of you going through the entire code base. So there are definitely benefits. I think it'll become as a tool to have your in your pocket,
Mm-hmm.
which will definitely help you with your productivity. But my personal take, if it will replace us, is it will not. As of now, no, it will not completely replace software engineers, but it will definitely will be more reliant on AI in when it comes to increasing our productivity.
Yeah.
We'll be able to complete more tasks in less time,
Yep.
and then there's whole you know situation with responsive AI and the
Yeah.
ethical implications. So we'll see where that goes because at this moment you're definitely seeing some challenges. People not being credited for their work that the AI has been trained on, and also like the leaks that happened, with Samsung's case and things
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So it's definitely interesting space to be in, but I don't think it'll take away our jobs anytime sooner.
Yeah. I agree. I agree. All right, man. So as we wrap up here, I have 4 questions I want to ask you, rapid fire. Actually, I do want to get to 2 questions real quick. This was earlier on. Lama said, "Which cloud platform do you prefer?" I'm kind of curious. It
Great question.
depends. I'm assuming is probably the answer.
Yes, and it depends upon. So there are two things. Personally, it also depends on the project that I'm trying to build and what
Sure.
services I'm used to. I'm at a point in my kind of career where it'll take. I don't. I can't spend much time in learning a new product than to leverage the information that I already have of a certain
Hmm.
service within a cloud provider. So it could be Azure, it could be AWS. For work, again, it depends. If the decision is made from top to bottom,
Sure.
kind of is like, oh, we have picked this service that will use, go work with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, Azure and AWS, both of them, I love it. I can
Yeah.
work with both of them.
I love that. And then one from Tejas, Rashad, what are some areas in cloud which are very important? Obviously, this is a very broad question, but if you want to give a quick tip or two on this.
Sure, I think learning about different architecture and different patterns and how it can help companies. So don't just focus on like, oh, DynamoDB is the AWS service for NoSQL. Learn about how it can help with databases. Where are the use cases of NoSQL databases, and what are some performance kind of factors? So, like, learn the patterns and how that can solve problems for an organization.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there are definitely great engineering blogs from like Netflix and Shopify. Um, what's the other one? I can't remember. Stripe. So go look into those blogs and see how they're using different cloud architecture patterns, and we can learn from these big organizations. And yeah, also see how AI applications will be hosted on cloud. So that is a good place that will grow pretty rapidly.
I love it. I love it. All right, last 4 questions, rapid fire, man. You ready? First
Yep.
question: if money was the same, what would you do outside of tech for your job?
I'll have a coffee place and I'll be a barista.
Nice. I love that. I love that. What is your go-to coffee drink?
Usually espresso, but every now and then I like mochas and lattes.
I love it. I
They're
love it.
on the sweeter side.
Do you want to give a shout out to your favorite coffee spot in your area?
Shout out to a coffee spot. It's a good one. It is fortunate. Like, I don't know if it's under construction,
Okay.
or if they're closing it completely,
Oh
or
no.
there's a change in the management.
Okay.
But it's right just down the block. I live on the King Street. It's called Coffee Culture. It used to be an awesome place. But yeah.
Well, hopefully it's just construction, not closing down. What brings you joy outside of work?
Oh,
What
that
do you
is a
like
good
to do
one.
outside of work?
I think education
Okay.
is, yeah, education. I love those light bulb moments when you see someone grasping a technical concept that I was
Sure.
able to, you know, kind of empower that.
Yeah, I love that. And last question, man. The show's called Guidance Counselor 2.0 because we had guidance counselors in middle school, high school, and college, but now as adults, we don't really have them. What would be your biggest piece of career advice to young Rishab?
Who? Um, that's a good one.
Everybody reacts that way to this question. I was like, "Whoa."
It's deep.
Yeah.
What would be? I think being consistent.
Okay.
Not that I'm saying that I wasn't consistent, but always remember the big picture goal. You know, I had few dreams. I don't know why I came to Canada, um, even though there were challenges with them. But always remember what your big picture goal was,
Yep.
and yeah, just stay consistent.
I love that. I love that, man. All right, y'all. Well, again, thank y'all for hanging out with us today. We appreciate it, Rashab. Stay on so I can say bye to you backstage. But again, go connect with Rashab. Rashab, how can people find you? Where's the best place for people to find you?
You can go to my website. It's rishab.cloud. Pretty simple. Just type in rishab.cloud. It has links to all of my socials. So it's one place. You can also find me on YouTube at Rishab in Cloud. I do a lot of cloud computing, DevOps, and now AI stuff. So yeah.
I love it. That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, y'all have a good one. Thank y'all so much, Rashab. Thank you, my friend. Y'all have a great Tuesday, and we'll see y'all tomorrow, 9:30 a.m. Central. Peace.
Peace.